All right. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. It is the first live for me of 2022, and I hope the holidays were treating you all really well. I know sometimes it can be a very challenging time when you're struggling with infertility, but I hope for most of you it went really well and that you were uplifted and you feel rejuvenated. I'm just going to give a few minutes here for everyone to pop in before we get started. I had a really nice holiday. I did get sick. My whole family, we got ill. And so that wasn't fun, but I'm glad to be feeling better now. And we were just homeward bound anyhow, so that was nice. And for those of you who are popping in, if you hear me say this now, which is that if you've been struggling with estrogen dominance at all, put a yes in the comments and let me know if you consciously know if you've been struggling with estrogen dominance. That is what our topic is for today, but you are welcome to ask me any other questions related to fertility, and I will do my best to answer them as we go along on this live. But remember that estrogen dominance can also be a issue for those of you with low estrogen levels. And so I want to talk about that as well, because I think that's a misnomer and very important when we're talking about infertility and we're talking about hormones and what that really and where that all really stems from. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment. I'm just going to give everyone just one more minute to pop in here, and then we'll start probably at 12 p.m. PST. And while we wait, I just want to remind you all, if you haven't already, pick up my free fertility starter kit on your fertility diet, but cleaning up lifestyle habits that you may not even be conscious of, that may be causing a lot of inflammation, and or to help get you on the road to refining your process. So there's something for everyone in there. And, there is a goal sheet in there. I talk about your diet, what's going on with your diet, how to really understand what are your primary inflammatory foods or your secondary inflammatory foods, and how to choose removing them. And also just talking about the different forms of stress and how they equate to inflammation, and giving you a goal sheet so you can get yourself going, give you a food journal diary. And that way you can begin to track things on your own, feel empowered, feel educated. And all of these steps are really, really crucial to helping you get closer to your baby and have your baby as naturally as possible. That's the goal. And if you end up needing fertility methods, well, then you end up needing fertility methods. But fertility methods are not going to give you good egg quality. They're not going to help to improve your implantation, etc. Right? Your body has to be a great host for the baby and provide good nutrients and good resources to create life. And so you can do that by implementing these strategies and more. And so we can talk about that a little bit later. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mara Salerno, and I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner of reclaimoptimalhealth.com, where I help couples just like you resolve their infertility and get back to creating those families you so deeply desire. And I practice something called functional fertility. So basically what I do is I help couples and sometimes just women on their own really investigate what are the underlying contributors to your fertility struggle or your infertility. Because more times than not, it has so much more to do than your reproductive organs, right? Yes, your hormones are important. Yes, your reproductive organs are important. But what is actually making them act in imbalance? What is causing them? If you've got fibroids, if you've got hormone imbalance, if you've got PMS, if you've got all those things, what is actually acting upon those symptoms that you have to make you feel that way and make you experience infertility? And so I do that by using a holistic and a natural approach by addressing your lifestyle habits and your diet, and utilizing functional lab testing as a really amazing doorway to finding the science behind your body, so that we can then analyze everything, listen to how you're feeling, and then I go through and basically share with you all the findings. And then once we have all those findings, then we're able to put together a journey for you that is uniquely designed. And that way, your particular infertility struggle gets turned around into a fertility win. And we get you closer to your baby, hopefully having your baby naturally. So that is really what a functional approach is. It's a whole body, whole person, holistic and natural approach to your fertility, investigating what is actually causing the infertility. Because it could be gut health, it could be a lot of different things. So that is what I do. And today we're going to talk about how estrogen dominance affects infertility, and how estrogen dominance can actually be a low estrogen scenario, and why that is. So again, for those of you who are popping in with me both on YouTube and Instagram, let me know if if you have estrogen dominance. You can drop a yes. And yeah, let me know. I want to know, because I think a lot of times many of you don't know that you have estrogen dominance. And in my program, we uncover whether or not estrogen dominance is an issue for you in step 1 of my program. So in the very beginning. And I like to utilize a Dutch test, which is a salivary and a urinary test, so that we can actually see what available hormones are doing in your body, like how they're acting upon things in your body. So it gives us a good idea. And a lot of your symptoms will also help to dictate, we'll be able to tell, I wonder if estrogen dominance is going on. Sorry, I got a piece of hair in my mouth and it's just bugging me. There it is. Okay. So when we are looking at hormones, for those of you who have gone to your fertility doctor or even your conventional doctor, you've probably had a blood test run for your hormones. And when you have a blood test run for your hormones, it's number one, not telling us the available hormones in your body, okay? But it's also just giving us like numbers, right? Like this much estrogen, this much progesterone, this much testosterone, right? This much DHEA, etc. And this is kind of problematic because, okay, you've got these hormones, but you don't know the available form. So you don't actually know what's usable, what's actually going on in your body. It's just like, what's floating around, what's being produced. And then you also are being given lab reference ranges. And lab reference ranges are based on the homogeneous population, which, as you've probably noticed, are very unhealthy. And you want to get yourself into a range of someone who is fertile and healthy so that you can have a baby as naturally as possible, right? So that's the first problem. Now, when you use a Dutch test, what it allows us to do is look at the available form of your hormones. And it allows us to see, well, is estrogen dominance playing a role? And estrogen dominance is literally when your estrogen levels are higher in comparison to your progesterone levels. So you might be able to detect this on a blood test, but I find that it's very, very difficult, again, because we're not talking about bioavailable hormones, usable hormones in the body. The other way is also because of the way that the test is set up. and the way that it's interpreted. So with a Dutch test, we can actually see this. Now that means that you could actually be having really low hormone levels, so really low estrogen levels, but your progesterone levels are actually even lower than your estrogen levels, which would make you estrogen dominant, right? So proportionately, estrogen is higher than progesterone when we're talking about estrogen dominance. But you could actually be in the very low range for both of those hormones and still be exhibiting estrogen dominance. Now, what does estrogen dominance do? Well, what happens is that from toxins and chemicals that come from your food, pesticides, your self-care products, your household products, things that you're exposed to that you don't even realize you're being exposed to accumulate in the body. And they are called endocrine disruptors or hormone disruptors. And those hormone disruptors tend to create not only overall hormone imbalance, but they tend to rise estrogen levels, particularly dirty estrogen. And dirty estrogen is what is usually responsible for estrogen dominance. So what happens is you've got all this estrogen in your body. Well, yeah, we do need estrogen, especially in the first phase of our menstrual cycle, right? Our follicular phase. And that is when estrogen is helping us to mature egg, right? So that when we then ovulate, we release the egg, and then we can hopefully embed that egg into the uterine lining with progesterone in the luteal phase of our cycle. Now, the problem is that things like also birth control would contribute to estrogen dominance or dirty estrogen. But when we have estrogen dominance, what it will do is it will almost in some ways mimic birth control, right? So that's why I bring up birth control. What happens with birth control? You take it, it surges your estrogen levels throughout the entire month, right? So that you don't have progesterone levels so much dominant in your luteal phase, which would prevent you from being able to get pregnant, right? So let's say you're not taking birth control pills, obviously, if you're trying to get pregnant and you are exhibiting estrogen dominance. Well, your body's going to kind of mimic that process a lot of times, not always, but it can make it very difficult to conceive. So if you're having conception issues, this can be a problem. Now, where else can be a problem? Well, you may be actually able to get pregnant with estrogen dominance, but then you're not able to actually hold the baby to full term and you're experiencing miscarriage. Well, you can see why. Because if you've got estrogen dominance, you're not going to have enough progesterone in the body to help hold the baby to full term. So if you're with me here in the comments, let me know if that makes sense to you. Drop a yes down below. And I'd love to hear if that makes sense to you, if you understand that. Now, some of the other issues that estrogen dominance can create, hey there, everyone, that estrogen dominance can create is it's going to be things like irregular cycles, right? You'll hear luteal phase defect a lot from fertility docs. That's what I was just talking about, where the second half of your luteal phase is not long enough. And then you've got implantation issues, which we talked about, and higher risks for miscarriage. Estrogen dominance tends to create a lot of PMS symptoms. So if you've got a lot of mood swings, breast tenderness, cramps, heavy overbleeding, just a lot of imbalance going on, well, estrogen dominance could definitely be at play for you. And really the way to know is to do a Dutch test, to run a Dutch test. This is what I run with my clients, and it gives us a ton of answers. And having someone who knows how to read it and analyze it for you is really important, and correlate it with your particular struggle and journey is important. Now, okay, fine. Let's say you've got estrogen dominance, right? And all right, you know that these dirty, toxic things are coming into your body. Well, what is it going to be damaging? Well, not only is it damaging, obviously, your hormones, but it's also going to be damaging your gut and your liver. Why? Well, because estrogen, you literally will poop out your excess hormones, like your excess estrogen, right? But if you've got tons of estrogen flowing through your body throughout the month, and if you were on birth control, your body tends to have a hard time going back to a normal state, especially if you're experiencing infertility in your case. It's like you're still streaming a ton of estrogen. And then if you've got toxic load in your body, possibly if you have too much weight on you, estrogen, dirty estrogen tends to sit in your fat cells. Well, then what happens is you're still trying to digest this stuff, right? So your gut is trying to poop out the excess hormones. If you're not pooping 2 to 3 times a day, yeah, I said 2 to 3 times a day. That always freaks people out. They're like, wow. Sometimes people barely poop once a day, if not once a week or once every 2 weeks for some people. And so if that's you, you really need to upregulate your bowel movements because you need to be able to excrete the hormones out of your body, toxic or not, because after they're used, they go through your gut. Now, the other major organ in the body for detoxification is your liver. So if your gut is overburdened, right, the next, major organ along that journey is your liver. And so your liver also helps you to detoxify estrogen. But if it's not really responsible for that, right, it's responsible for detoxing from all the other chemicals. So if it's overburdened and working too hard, what happens with the gut and the liver if all this estrogen is just too much for them? Well, it gets recirculated through your bloodstream. Okay, they basically just go back through the intestinal walls and go back into your bloodstream. And what happens, if you can imagine, when dirty estrogen recycles, it almost gets dirtier, right? It's almost like it condenses, if you will. And it becomes really problematic. And this is where we start to see things like oxidative stress and inflammation. And these are all major for infertility. So you really, really want to take care of estrogen dominance. Make sure you don't have it. And if you do have it, take care of it. Now, it's a tricky road, like with things like fibroids, PCOS, things like that, when we're talking about estrogen dominance, because again, you may actually be having very low estrogen levels, but your body's still exhibiting estrogen dominance. So does that make sense, everyone? Drop a yes to me in the comments below, or if you have any questions, drop them down there in the comments and I'll check them out and try to do my best to answer them for you. Okay. Now, I just want to touch upon kind of what happens when you have estrogen dominance, some other places to look besides the gut. And one of those major places is the brain, okay? Because what happens is for example, if you're on birth control, which you can go back into my videos on Instagram or on YouTube, and I have a couple of videos in there where I talk about birth control, but what happens is that your brain is actually the initiator. Your brain speaks to both your adrenal glands, which produce some hormones, and also obviously your ovaries, which produce hormones like estrogen, etc. And when you take something like birth control, or you have too many toxins in your body, or you have a lot of traumatic stress, mental, emotional, spiritual stress. And I know infertility brings that on, but even before you knew that you had an infertility struggle, what are the things that were going on? I mean, life is stressful for everybody. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't experience stress, but how you manage it is really important. And if you're not managing it well, what happens is that the brain gets triggered. And right, when we have a natural stress response, our brain will trigger our adrenals to release cortisol, our stress hormone, through the body. And then, we'll get a certain amount of cortisol in the body. And then once we reach a certain amount and our body feels safe, then it will trigger the brain to then shut off cortisol being pushed out. Why is that important to estrogen dominance? Well, Because what happens is that same triggering from your brain is speaking not only to your adrenals, but it's also speaking to your ovaries. And if your body does not feel safe enough and you are in a chronic stress response, which means that this cortisol never turns off, it keeps streaming through your body, well, then what happens? All your other hormones are going to begin not only producing, but maybe not producing enough or too much, right? So it'll be in imbalance, out of balance, secretion or production of your hormones, and that includes estrogen. So if you've been on birth control for even a few months for some people, unfortunately, it will just begin to wreak havoc on how your brain communicates with your adrenals and your ovaries in order to produce estrogen in your body, and it won't know how to go back to normal. And so it'll need some help. And that's one of the things that I do with my fertility clients, is help them get things back into balance. And it's doable. You can totally do it. That's the good news. So some of the things that I want you to remember, and I talked about this in the beginning of the live here just a little bit ago, is to pick up my free fertility starter kit. Because one of the fantastic ways to drive down estrogen dominance is to, number one, work on cleaning up your diet, getting on a whole foods organic diet, getting rid of packages and processed foods, getting yourself on high quality clean water. So that's not a Brita over-the-counter water filter. That's like going to a water store or having a high-quality micron filtration system in your home. Because all of those, between the pesticides and all the chemicals in the water, you will begin to be producing estrogen, dirty estrogen in your body. That includes cleaning up your self-care products, your household products, all this kind of stuff. Getting it cleaned up. And you don't have to do it all at once. So I don't mean to overwhelm you when I'm listing this off, but I want to just kind of get your mind going, oh yeah, I can understand going there. And getting your diet right for you is really important, because all of these are inflammatory and oxidative in nature. And that is going to compromise your egg quality and obviously imbalance your hormones. So we want to get that all intact by, driving a lot of attention into these arenas. And if you're able to run functional lab testing with someone like myself and, get it analyzed and get someone to support you and work on your journey, then it's probably going to be a little bit quicker for you. I mean, there are times though when people just tweak and clean up their diet and, just remove some inflammatory factors, and boom, they get pregnant. It's awesome. But for many of you, if you've been on this journey for a little while, it's definitely time to start investigating using functional lab testing and really getting to the roots of why the estrogen dominance is going on, or other factors to your infertility. So I want to encourage you that you can turn this around, and that, again, low estrogen levels, as long as they are just even slightly higher than your progesterone levels, can be having you exhibiting estrogen dominance. So it's a tricky thing. So I want to give you all a moment. If you want to leave any of your questions down below, I'm looking for them right now to see if I can answer any of them for you. And if you ever have questions for me and, you forget while we're here live to put them in the comments or whatever, you can always DM me on Instagram. If you're on YouTube, or if you're even on Instagram, you're also welcome to email me. If you get on my email list, you can go to my website, reclaimoptimalhealth.com, and you'll find actually that free fertility starter kit available for you to sign up for on the very top, I think, and bottom of the website. So you can fill them out there, and then you'll be connected to me, and then it's easy for you to get in touch if you don't like messaging on Instagram. So I hope that was helpful for you all. And again, I'm wishing you the best in this year and really always. And that you get to bring your baby into this world this year. And again, if you want to set up a qualifying call with me, you can go to my website, reclaimoptimalhealth.com/schedule, and you can schedule a qualifying call with me where we can talk about how you can have your baby. And I'm really happy to see you all. I'm unhappy that it's under these circumstances, but I'm here to support you and serve you. So please take advantage of that. Ask me your questions and let's get you going on your family. All right, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you next week, 12 p.m. Bye.